Guys, so we gotta start getting a little creative with our functionalities, because if we go back here, we don't want two buttons here. We want this to be dynamically generated depending of if this post was liked. Okay, so we're gonna create a couple helper functions that are gonna help us do that. You guys ready? Okay, let's do it. So the first function that I want to create is maybe the logged in user ID. That would be very useful to have because we want to detect the user that's actually logged in. Okay, and maybe a function also called something like a function that detects if the user liked the post. So what I want to do is I want to go to functions. If I remember where I put that thing, this admin, I put it in admin. Okay, whoa. Okay, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put it all the way up here, and it's nice to know that we have some functions that I created there. Okay, just making sure. Okay, you know, it's very useful to actually organize these files. So uh, make sure that you know, clean the spaces and make this a little better if it's like this. I'm just checking to see what functions I have. I have to remember, you know, not to write something that I already have. Login user. If you already have a function that will help you with this, don't bother too much. So right here on top, I'm going to start creating these functions. And maybe after the logged in here, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so let's create this and let's see how we are going to attack this. So I'm going to call this logged in user ID, just like that. Okay, so how can we detect the user? Well, we have a session, right? As you can see right here. So I can just copy this and I can tell if this is set, right? That we are, well, first of all, we need to make sure that it is set before we even play around with anything. Okay, so what we could do is, instead of using this whole thing here, make sure that, you know, that let's just use that function like this. If it's logged in, okay, because this function is checking if it's set, so might as well just use that function. And we'll find out later if it works right for us. If it doesn't, then, you know, we do something else. One function that I really want to create, guys, is one to make the query that I don't see here. To make that query, instead of making that query and putting the connection all the time and include and doing this global thing here, we just should have just a function to help us with that. And I thought I did have one. Maybe I didn't have in another course. Let's see, query, and yeah, I don't have that. Let me double check. Confirm query, we have that. Yeah, but we don't have that. So let's actually create one here before we go any further, because I really don't want the hassle of writing a whole bunch of things just to make a connection to our database. So let's just query, and this function is just going to return, is going to have the global connection. Okay, and all we got to do here is return the MySQLi query with the connection, and it's going to have some type of query. So make sure that you give it a query there. Okay, that's all this is doing here. Come back here. Oops, let's make sure that this is tight. Okay, you can put your comments there too, guys. All right, so let me just put this. I like to put my like core functions on top, like the really important ones. Okay, so logged in user ID, how are we going to do this? Well, first thing, we need to make a query, right? So I'm just going to save this in a result variable, and I'm going to use my function that I just created, which is going to be make things a lot easier, right? And now the query is just going to be select all, or we can just select the username if we want to, from users. So we're going to select the users where, how can we detect this? The username is equal to something. And we did have another function that detects the user, right? Username. But that's okay. We need it in MySQL right here. So we can concatenate it right here. And we need a single quote there because it's going to be a string. Let's end it with another single quote here, like that. Okay, and now here we just say session, and the session is going to be username, because remember that every time a user gets logged in, we do that. Okay, so in the next lecture we'll finish this off, but what I want to do, what I want you guys to do is I want you to remember how we do a query, right? Fetch, fetch an array, get the result, make sure that the result, the number of rows is bigger than 1 or equal than 1, and return the user ID. Do that, and I'll see you in the next lecture, because that's what we're going to do in the next one.